Now we've gotten a feel for how to work with movie clips, but of course there's going to be lots of other objects that we're going to be dealing with in ActionScript. So let's take a look at a couple more of these before we close up this lesson. I'll get rid of these two panels, and let's bring some other elements onto our stage that we can work with. I'll press F9 to get rid of our Actions panel just for a second. And what I'd like to work with are a couple of things that are going to be common to most of your Flash presentations, and that would be text elements and buttons. Now to save us from making a button, I think I'll just swipe one from the libraries that are built into the program. We can access this under Windows and Common Libraries, and they've actually got a few elements in here that we can just grab a hold of anytime you need to. So I'll just go into the button section of that one. That's going to bring us up a nice little library panel, and we have a whole bunch of different buttons that we can choose from. All of these folders have different styles of buttons that we can just grab and add to our presentation. A couple of these classic buttons down in here. These ones are kind of gaudy. There we've got big push button graphics that we can use. I think I'll grab a red one. Now let me just make sure I put that in the right layer. So I'm just going to access my timeline here a little bit. And I think we've got some layers here. There we go. We've got a layer for buttons and text. So let me just go to the buttons layer. We can just grab that red button right on out. And I'll just toss it here off the side of the screen. And I need another one. So let me just grab the yellow one that's right next to it. Now I can close this panel on up. Now these are just standard buttons. They've actually got some pretty nice graphics in them, so if we take a look at them up close, just so we know what we've grabbed, I can double-click on that to see what's going on inside the button file itself. And if I just make sure I show all the layers, I'll toggle that twice, you can see that the up button looks like this shiny plastic button. The over looks the same, but when you press it, you get a little indent in there. So we've just got a nice, quick, easy button set up for us that we can use. Now for our text, let me just select the text layer, and we'll make a piece of text that we can use right over here with the text tool. I'll put it right down here, let's say right in the middle of the screen. So I'll just use my text tool. We've got the text layer set up. I'll just drag out a quickie text field, and I'll type the word placeholder in it just so we can see what the text is going to look like. Now just like any other text field that you've placed inside a Flash movie, you can set the font properties. I'll set this to a Verdana, I think, down here. And I'll set the size up a little bit, and I'll just give it some color. But what I'll also point out while we're playing around with text properties is static text is one of these items that has no name. Now our basic rule from this lesson on is going to be ActionScript won't be able to do anything with an item unless it's got a name. Lucky for us, that's what dynamic text is. It's basically a text field with a name. So you can see we are really dividing our elements on stage into two categories. Things that ActionScript can control, and things that it can't. Now let me just give this one a name. I usually put TXT in the front of my text fields, kind of like using MC for my movie clips. And this text field I'll call the score. Now let's do the same thing to our buttons as well. Let me just switch over here. I think I want to move that up just a little bit. And I'll use my spacebar to access the hand tool, get over here where my buttons are in the corner of the screen. And remember, we not only want to have our graphics have the capacity to have a name, but we're going to actually have to name them in order to access them. Now for these ones, I'm going to use BTN so I can find my buttons. That's just more of a naming convention that I've chosen, but it helps out in identifying things later on. And then I'll finish off the name by just typing red in there. So we got button red, and of course, with that convention, let's name this one BTN yellow. Now the first thing I'd like to show is that we can control these items in very much the same way as we did our last items. Each of our elements on the screen are going to have an X and Y location. They're going to have a width and a height. You can see it right down here in the Properties window. So we can access these exactly the same way. Let's bring up our Actions panel, and I'm just going to place the X and Y location of these buttons and the text field, and we'll just set everything up so that it's in the right spot. Let me just click over here and open up my Actions panel, and we'll go down to the bottom, and I'll add a little comment here where we set up the buttons. Now I'll just start out by setting the X and Y values just like we did last time. I'll do button red. I'll use ._x to access that X property. And we'll set that equal to, let's say, about 60. And I'll set its Y location in the same way, btn red ._y. And I'll set that equal to about 340. I'll just copy and paste these real quick, and we'll set them up for the yellow button as well. First of all, I'll change red to yellow in both cases. Now I'd actually like these two to line up, so I'm going to leave the y values the same, but I'd like the x value to be a little bit further over on the screen. So I'm going to set this up to, let's say, about 150. Now let's see if that lays out okay. I'll hit Control Enter, and you can see we've got our buttons dropped down in here. Looks like I could push them down just a little bit, and maybe I'll move my text field over a little bit as well. We'll just make those changes real quick. I'll close up these windows, and it looks like if I set my y value maybe to about 360, that'll be down far enough. And let's take that text field that we built. Now remember, we called it txt score, and I'll take its underscore x value and set it equal to something greater than those other elements. Let's say about 400. And we'll do a quick test to see if we got everything laid out in the right spot. Looks like I pushed that out a little bit far, and when I think of it, 400 is kind of a high number for that when I was thinking of the y value instead of the x value. So we'll make another quick adjustment to that. It's kind of nice and easy to be able to do this. I set the last x value of the button over at 150, so I could probably get away with about 200 or 220. And while I'm at it, I might as well make these about 350 instead of 360. And we'll test once more. And we've got it laid out pretty well.